This week on Right Now, journalist, broadcaster and author Patrick Henningsen joins me in the studio to talk about current global events and the role of the alternative media in getting the truth to the masses. Dr. Sam White gives us an update on the criminal complaint of misconduct that he and others launched against the UK government. Former investment banker Mads Palsvig tells us about the new political party he's created in Denmark. And Claire McGrath tells us about standing as an independent MP in the UK, how she wants to bring real people, not career politicians, into Parliament. Plus, we'll be reminding you how you could be talking to my dad, David Icke, as part of his 70th birthday celebrations. Friday, 7 p.m. UK, Ickonic.com.
No, it definitely is. It definitely is. And it shows you the power of just one incident or one image. I mean, we get thrown all of these things at us all the time, of these stories from war zones. I mean, just in the Ukraine, they had the soldiers at Snake Island who defied the Russians and ended up getting killed. That turned out to be a fake story. We had the ghost of Kiev who shot down 20 Russian fighters. That turned out to be a fake story. So, but it's a story. We're constantly being bombarded with stories, the bombing of a theater in Mariupol, or the maternity hospital that got hit. All of these are stories that get thrown to the Western audience, and to mold and shape the feelings, the emotions of the Western audience, so that we will back certain policies which are presented to us by our government and our ministers. So, but that door can swing both ways, and they've done a lot in terms of throwing resources to suppress on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The censorship on Ukraine has been pretty amazing, very similar to COVID censorship, vaccine censorship. But if something manages to break through, like this particular video of this horrendous torture of POWs, and let's be clear, there's horrendous things going on both sides. You know, no one likes to see this level of violence and warfare, okay? But if a story like that gets traction in the West, then this idea that the Ukrainian military are democracy, freedom-fighting saints, effectively, and Zelensky is a democratic hero for the ages, that narrative really starts to erode very quickly. And people start asking questions. And what about the Nazi affiliations? What about the various battalions, the radical nationalists? And then when the questions start, then people start reevaluating. Even the most biased mainstream media journalists and outlets in the West, they can't, in a global media space, they can't ignore these things forever.
Yeah, so we went the end of December 20th of December to the Metropolitan Police to basically talk to them, and it was about a 5-6 hour interview that we did with one of the officers there to outline how each of the measures for the Coronavirus Act, because in April 2020, you have to remember, the complete normal practice of medicine was suspended and turned upside down. So really everything is inverted. This has been based on lies and fraud and deceit, frankly. So we said, you know, the General Medical Council, which is misconducting itself in public office, because anyone who dares to question the narrative of the government, and we all have a right to hold the government to account and question them, is wrong, unfit to do their job, and must be dealt with, silenced and smeared. Now, the same is true for the MHRA. This is the drugs regulator in the UK. So various measures have taken place, and essentially they have approved the conditional market authorization of a gene-based injection. This isn't a vaccine, this is something else altogether. They've approved that without ever isolating a virus in the first place. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I think it does. But it'd be nice for the government and the regulatory bodies to show us evidence that it does exist.
Well, there isn't anything right, Gareth. I think that's probably where we start.
That's the quicker answer.
I wouldn't say that there was one thing right. So people have questioned me when I've been at these assemblies and talking to the community, why are you going through an existing system? Well, at this point, I have no alternative. If other people decide to join and represent their communities, then, if we vote in, I don't know, majority of independent candidates representing their local community, then we can really get stuck in. But until that point, we just need to show that we're no longer consenting. I think we need to just be out there, just having another dialogue, because somebody like me is like a fly that's buzzing around, because they're going to be irritating. I might be small, but I'm mighty. And my local MP has been our local MP for a very long time, and and all the places I've been, I haven't seen him. So I think, how do we change it? I don't think we change it. We just get rid of it. But we can only do that when there's enough of us to represent.
Well, I think what we have to understand now, we are at war. This is the Third World War, and this is the owners of the multinational corporations. They have bribed every single political party in all Western countries, or even though those they have infiltrated. So this is a war against the multinational corporations. So what I think we should do is, we of course should take back the privilege of producing money. That belongs to the people. Everybody should benefit equally from the enormous value of seigniorage, the value of producing money. And then we should have a tax reform that transfers the taxation from human beings to corporations. It's very easy to do. You remove income tax and corporation tax, and then you introduce a 1% digital turnover tax. So that means that you put a tax on whenever you transfer money digitally. This way, the multinational corporations will have to pay tax for the first time in history. And these are not new companies. These companies started 300 years ago with the East Indian Company and all that. So it's nothing new with these multinational corporations. They never paid tax. But if they have to pay 1% whenever they transfer money, they will have to pay tax instead. And can you imagine the amount of wealth creation we will have, and increasing quality of life if we don't have to pay tax? There will be full employment. Everybody would be able to provide for their family. We might even be able to, again, going back to the 50s or 60s, where either the father or the mother is actually being allowed to spend time with their children, instead of now where both parents have to work and we have to give our children to an institution that doesn't love our children as much as we do. We should look after our children when they're small. And I'm an accidental dad. I happen to have made some money, and I took some time off, and I spent a lot of time with my kids when they were small. And it's just so rewarding. Nobody tells you that as a dad. It is so important to bond with your children when they're small.
It's already with the IOPC, and we launched quite a lengthy letter publicly to outline all of the various aspects of the evidence that was presented to the police, which they then rebutted simply as nothing to see here. Okay, so it's getting harder and harder, I think, for them to cover up. Mark Sexton, who you may know, is part of our team. He recently went to a police station at Ellen Road and handed over more evidence to them. And I've recently heard from another police station saying they would like to talk to us. Right. We're waiting again on the IOPC, and there's also been complaints of perversion of the course of justice that's been instigated, because that's what this is. To say nothing to see here when there's really everything to see here, and would undoubtedly be the biggest investigation in British criminal history, is incredulous, really.
It's really hard to tell these days. Anything's possible. We've seen so many of these gags, especially around the Oscars and things like that, to either promote products or promote an agenda. But in this case, watching Will Smith, who is arguably the most successful Hollywood actor, and financially he's done incredibly well. He's among the most wealthiest of all time, right? And the stature, the reputation, everything, to see him do that would you'd think would be demeaning to his character, in defense of his wife, or Chris Rock made a joke about his wife, whatever. But to do that on global television live, whether it's real or not, whether it's staged or not, to me it doesn't matter, because that whole scene is just indicative of the sort of the decay of the Hollywood world, this kind of pseudo world that's elevated to such a high level, that's become more and more like it's late stage empire. That scene was perfect to me. I was so happy to see it. I know it's horrific, and it sets a horrible precedent. Imagine being a stand-up comedian now.
Yeah. People coming off the front row.
But it says so much about Hollywood, and the ratings were tanking with the Oscars. And you know what? I don't think they're going to be any higher next year.
No.
Even with a stunt like this. So you're just seeing a gradual demise. And I always said, from 2015, when Trump was running for president, I said back then that politics is the new Hollywood, because how do they garner their celebrity currency? It's done by screen time. It's done by media exposure. Well, who has the most media exposure now? It's not Hollywood celebrities.